The conference room aboard the Kaldrith command ship buzzed with excitement. Commander Vex Thor stood before the holographic display, his 4 eyes gleaming with satisfaction. The planet rotating slowly in the blue light looked perfect. Green continents, blue oceans, white clouds, swirling in predictable patterns. It was beautiful, defenseless, and about to become property of the Kaldrith Empire. "Gentlemen," Vex Thor announced, his voice carrying the confidence of 20 successful campaigns. "I present to you the easiest conquest in our military history. Asnour military. Number 3. Asnour military. History." The assembled officers leaned forward, their tentacles twitching with anticipation. Junior Officer Pixlan sat in the back row, reviewing the survey data on his personal screen. He was young, barely 3 cycles into his military service, but thorough in his duties. The target world is designated GC 7,834 inches, our navigation charts. Vex Thor continued. Our long-range scans show a single, unified, planetary government. This is unusual but advantageous. One government means one surrender, not dozens of separate negotiations. The tactical officer, a scarred veteran named Colrex, manipulated the hologram to show weapon signatures. Their technology level is primitive, Commander. They use chemical propellants for their weapons. Actual explosives and kinetic projectiles. No plasma weapons detected. No particle beams. Nothing that could threaten our shields. Laughter rippled through the room. Chemical weapons belonged in museums, not modern warfare. Their space presence is minimal, Colrex added. A few satellites. A small station orbiting their planet. Nothing armed. Nothing that could resist even a single frigate, much less our full battle group. Vex Thor expanded the display to show the Kaldrith fleet. 47 warships of various classes, from nimble corvettes to the massive dreadnought he currently commanded. It was overwhelming force for such a primitive target. But the Empire believed in certainty. No battle was worth losing because of inadequate preparation. The indigenous population numbers approximately 8 billion, Vex Thor said. They are divided into multiple nation-states, despite having a unified government structure. Our analysts believe this indicates poor social cohesion. They argue among themselves over trivial matters. Resources, territory, abstract concepts they call ideologies. The political officer, a thin Kaldrith named Vesitin, spoke up. His role was to ensure military actions served imperial interests. The population will be valuable for labor conscription. They are physically robust, capable of surviving in various environmental conditions. After proper conditioning, they will serve the Empire well. Kanakna. Pixlan frowned at his screen. Something in the cultural database seemed odd. He scrolled through behavioral notes compiled by the survey team. The inhabitants of GC 7,834 engaged in something called persistence hunting. They literally chased their prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. What kind of predator did that? Most hunters used speed, strength, or venom. Chasing something for hours seemed inefficient. Another note caught his attention. The species demonstrated spite as a motivational factor. They would sometimes act against their own immediate interests to prove a point or punish perceived wrongdoing. That seemed irrational. Pixlan made a mental note to ask about it later, then dismissed it. Probably just translation errors. The survey team had only observed from orbit. Our strategy is simple, Vex Thor explained, pulling up tactical maps. We enter their system, establish orbital superiority, and broadcast surrender terms. Given their technological limitations, they will recognize the futility of resistance. If they are foolish enough to fight, we disable their industrial capacity with surgical strikes. Minimal casualties on both sides. Colrex nodded approvingly. A clean operation. We should have the planet secured within 5 standard days. 3 days, Vex Thor corrected. The Empire wants this concluded quickly. There are 3 other worlds in our expansion queue. The officers began discussing logistics, supply lines, garrison requirements. How many troops would be needed to maintain order during the transition period? It was all very routine. They had done this before on other worlds. The Caldrith Empire was not the largest or most powerful in the galaxy, but it was efficient and methodical in its expansion. Pixlon continued reviewing the cultural data. The inhabitants of GC 7834 had an unusual history. They fought among themselves constantly, yet somehow achieved technological advancement despite the chaos. Their planet was classified as a high-gravity world with dangerous weather patterns. They had survived multiple extinction-level events. The survey notes described them as remarkably adaptable and unusually persistent. There was that word again, persistent. It kept appearing in the behavioral analysis. Are there any questions? Vex Thor asked. Scanning the room, Pixlon almost raised his hand, then hesitated. He was the most junior officer present. Questioning the commander's briefing would be presumptuous. The survey team had spent months analyzing GC 7834. They knew what they were doing. His concerns about translation, errors, and behavioral oddities were probably nothing. He lowered his hand and remained silent. Excellent, Vex Thor said. We depart in 6 hours. All ships will jump together and arrive in formation. I want an impressive display. Sometimes the sight of overwhelming force is enough to secure immediate surrender. The officers filed out, already discussing which ships would get the honor of the first orbital positions. Pixlon gathered his datapad and followed, his unease growing despite the confident mood around him. 6 hours later, the Caldrith battle group activated their jump drives. Space folded around them in a shimmer of exotic particles. The journey to GC 7834 would take 3 days at faster-than-light speeds. 3 days of final preparations, weapons checks, and rehearsing the surrender broadcast. Vex's Thor spent the time in his quarters, reviewing the psychological profiles of GC 7834's inhabitants. The survey team had identified key pressure points. The species valued their offspring highly, more than most. They formed strong emotional attachments. They responded to shows of force, but also respected strength, tempered with mercy. Threaten their children, and they would fight desperately. Demonstrate overwhelming power, then offer generous terms, and they would likely capitulate. It was a standard formula. It had worked on a dozen other primitive worlds. On the 3rd day, the fleet emerged from jump space at the edge of the GC 7834 system. The target planet hung in the distance, a blue-green jewel against the black. The fleet formed up in attack formation and began the approach, engines burning steadily toward their destination. Vex Thor took his position on the bridge, surrounded by his senior staff. Status report. All ships in position, Commander. No defensive response detected. A few sensor locks from their satellites, but nothing that could threaten us. Open a channel. All frequencies. I want everyone on that planet to hear this. Channel open, sir. Vex Thor prepared to deliver the surrender demand he had given so many times before. The words came easily. State your superiority. Outline the terms. Give them a short deadline to consider. It was almost boring in its predictability. But before he could speak, a calm voice came through their communications system. It spoke in perfect Caldrith, which was surprising, but not alarming. Translator programs could manage that. Attention, unidentified vessels. This is Earth Defense Command. You have entered protected space without authorization. You have 5 minutes to reverse course and exit this system. Failure to comply will be considered an act of war. The bridge crew erupted in laughter. Earth Defense Command? What kind of grandiose title was that for such a primitive world? Then someone screamed. A junior technician at the navigation station, his face pale, his tentacles trembling. Sir, the planet designation. I just cross-referenced the local identifier. His voice cracked with panic. GC 7834 is just our catalog number. The natives call their world. Vex's Thor felt his blood turn cold. His 4 eyes widened in horror. He whispered the word before the technician could finish. Earth. The laughter died instantly. Every officer on the bridge froze. Someone dropped a datapad. It clattered loudly in the sudden silence. Pixlan pulled up his database with shaking hands, accessing the secure military channels he had never needed before. He found the file immediately. It was flagged with the highest warning level. The title simply read, Earth, do not engage. The Caldrith Bridge remained frozen in horrified silence. Commander Vex's Thor stood motionless, his mind racing through implications. Earth. The name echoed in his head like a death sentence. Someone tell me I heard that wrong, he said quietly. Tell me the translator malfunctioned. The navigation technician checked his screen 3 times before responding. No malfunction, sir. Cross-reference confirmed. GC 7834 local designation is Earth, 3rd planet from their sun. The inhabitants call themselves humans. Pixlan was already pulling up every file he could access. The secure military database opened, revealing document after document, marked with red warning symbols. He started reading aloud, his voice shaking. Sir, there are 43 separate incident reports from other civilizations, all involving Earth or humans. All marked priority alert. Colrex, the tactical officer, grabbed his own screen. This cannot be correct. Our survey team spent months analyzing GC 7834. They would have identified if this was Earth. The survey team observed from the outer system, Pixlan said, scrolling frantically. They never approached close enough for cultural identification. They catalogued technology and resources only. Vex Thor felt his career dissolving before his eyes. More than his career, possibly his life, and the lives of everyone aboard these 47 ships. Pull up everything. I want every report about Earth immediately. The main display switched from tactical view to a data stream. Reports began appearing, cascading down the screen faster than anyone could read them. Incident reports, contact logs, diplomatic warnings, all involving humans. Start with the Galtrine Concordat, Vexthor ordered. They are the closest major power to Earth space. What do they say? Senin. Open. Pixlan found the file and threw it onto the main display. The report was 30 cycles old, written by a Galtrine admiral named Thex Ilor. Vexi Thor began reading aloud, his voice hollow. First contact with Earth occurred during a border survey operation. Galtrine scouts encountered a small human exploration vessel in disputed territory. Following standard protocol, we seized the vessel and detained its crew for questioning. The political officer, Vesitin, interrupted. That is reasonable. Standard procedure for unknown vessels in claimed space. Keep reading, Pixlan whispered. Vex's Thor continued. The human crew consisted of 5 individuals. They did not panic or beg for release. Instead, they observed our procedures with unusual focus. During transport to our security facility, they asked detailed questions about our ship systems, our culture, our government structure. We assumed they were simply curious primitives facing their first contact with superior civilization. Colrex leaned closer. What happened? They escaped within 2 days, Vex Thor read. Despite being held in a maximum security facility, despite having no tools or weapons, the humans systematically bypassed our containment systems. They disabled guards using improvised weapons created from eating utensils. They hacked our computer networks using a portable communication device one of them had concealed. They stole a transport shuttle and fled the facility. The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances. That was impressive, but not unprecedented. Escape attempts happen sometimes. The Galtrine sent pursuit ships, Vex Thor continued. They expected to recapture the humans quickly. Instead, The humans evaded 12 military vessels for 4 days before escaping to their own space. The pursuit commander reported that the humans seemed to learn their tactics in real time, adapting their evasion patterns after each encounter. Vesitin shifted uncomfortably. That suggests advanced tactical training. It gets worse, Pixlon said. Keep reading. Vexthor scrolled down. 3 weeks later, a human diplomatic vessel arrived at the Galtrine border. They requested peaceful negotiations. The Galtrine High Command agreed, believing they could dictate terms to the primitive species. The humans arrived with a delegation of 5 ambassadors. The commander's voice became quieter. During negotiations, the human chief diplomat made a presentation. She displayed real-time surveillance imagery of 17 secret Galtrine military installations. Locations that were classified at the highest security levels. Bases hidden in remote systems. Weapons research facilities that officially did not exist. The humans had found them all. Silence fell across the bridge. The human diplomat explained, calmly and politely, that Earth had no desire for conflict. She suggested that peaceful coexistence would benefit both civilizations. She implied, without making direct threats, that continued hostilities would be unwise. The Galtrine High Command reviewed the intelligence breach and discovered that humans had somehow infiltrated their secure networks without leaving any trace. Colrex made a choking sound. They hacked the Galtrine Concordat? The Galtrine have military-grade security systems, some of the best in known space. The report concludes with a recommendation. Vexthor read, quote, "The species known as humans are to be approached with extreme caution. They possess technological capability beyond their apparent development level. More critically, they demonstrate adaptability, creativity, and determination that exceeds any species in our database. They are not to be threatened, provoked, or underestimated. Diplomatic contact only." End quote. Pixlon pulled up another file. "Sir, there are similar reports from 6 other civilizations. The Zorthek Hierarchy, the Mendar Trade Alliance, the Quintel Federation. All of them have encountered humans. All of them recommend the same thing. Do not engage militarily." Vexthor felt sick. Why was this not in our standard navigation database? It was, the navigation technician said weakly, but filed under local species designation, Earth, not under catalog number GC 7834. The survey team never made the connection because they did not collect cultural data at close range. The political officer stood abruptly. This is clearly exaggerated intelligence. Propaganda. Designed to protect a primitive world. 6 civilizations would not defer to pre-FTL primitives unless there was some conspiracy involved. Pull up their planetary classification, Vexthor ordered, ignoring Vesitin. Pixlan found the file. His face went pale. "Sir, Earth is classified as a Category 4 Death World." "Explain," Colrex demanded. "Gravity is 1.2 standard. Atmospheric pressure at sea level would be uncomfortable for most species. Oxygen content is 21%, which is toxic to several species over extended periods. The planet's surface is 71% covered in dihydrogen monoxide. Water," Vexthor translated. "They live on a water world. Temperature ranges are extreme," Pixlon continued. "From -40 degrees to +50 degrees in habitable zones. Weather patterns include violent electrical storms, rotating wind columns capable of destroying structures, and frozen water precipitation that can bury entire settlements." Colrex checked his own database. "Their native biology evolved to survive these conditions? Humans are persistence predators," Pixlon read. "They have exceptional endurance relative to their muscle mass. They regulate body temperature through liquid secretion. They possess an emergency response system called adrenaline that temporarily increases strength, speed, and pain tolerance. They heal rapidly from injuries that would be fatal to many species. The bridge crew stared at the display. Everything they had assumed about the target world was wrong. Not just wrong. Dangerously wrong. "Commander," Kolrex said carefully, "I recommend immediate withdrawal. We entered this system under false assumptions. We should retreat and report our error to Imperial Command." Vex Thor wanted to agree. Every instinct screamed at him to turn the fleet around and jump away as fast as possible. But Vesitin, the political officer, stepped forward. "Absolutely not," Vesitin declared. "The Empire has committed 47 warships to this operation. We have invested significant resources. To retreat without even testing their defenses would be humiliating. It would make us look weak. It would make us look smart," Pixlan muttered. Vesitin glared at him. "You are a junior officer. Speak when addressed." He turned to Vex Thor. "Commander, I am invoking my political authority. The Empire's honor requires that we make at least a show of force. Fire warning shots at their satellite network. Demonstrate our superiority. Then we can negotiate from a position of strength." Vex Thor hesitated. Every military instinct told him this was wrong. But political officers had authority to override tactical decisions. It was the Empire's way of ensuring military actions served political goals. "Sir, please reconsider," Kolrex urged. "These reports suggest—" "Well, I have made my decision," Vesitin interrupted. "Commander Vex Thor, you will order a limited strike on the satellite network. Show these humans what our weapons can do." Vex Thor closed his 4 eyes. He thought about his family back home, his offspring, who admired their father, the military hero. He thought about the 47 ships under his command, thousands of Kaldreth lives depending on his decisions. Then he thought about the reports, the warnings, the phrase that kept appearing, "Do not engage." He opened his eyes. Tactical. Target the nearest satellite cluster. Fire a single warning burst. Minimal power. Just enough to demonstrate capability. "Yes, sir," Kolrex replied, his voice heavy with resignation. The weapons officer entered the command. Energy built in the dreadnought's forward batteries. A brilliant blue beam lanced across space toward a cluster of human satellites. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the satellites moved. They dodged. Primitive satellites that should have been little more than metal boxes in fixed orbits suddenly maneuvered with impossible precision. The energy beam passed harmlessly through empty space. "What?" Vex Thor began. Return fire came immediately. Not from the satellites. From hidden weapons platforms that had been invisible to Kaldreth sensors. Precise, devastating strikes hit 3 ships in the fleet simultaneously. Shields flared and failed. Alarms shrieked across multiple channels. A new transmission came through. That same calm voice from before. "You fired first. That was unfortunate for you." Pixlan pulled up the full Earth file, the one with the highest classification level. At the top of the document, in letters that seemed to pulse with warning, was a single sentence in 6 different languages. "Do not engage Earth under any circumstances." Below it, a note added by the Galtrine Admiral. "We mean it. Seriously. We really mean it." Vex Thor stared at the words and realized he had just made the worst decision of his life. The Kaldreth Bridge descended into controlled chaos. Damage reports flooded in from 3 ships simultaneously. Shields compromised on the cruiser Wing of Dawn. Hull breach on the frigate Silent Blade. The destroyer, Far Horizon, reported weapons systems offline and life support failing in 2 compartments. "All ships, evasive maneuvers," Vex Thor shouted. "Fall back to defensive formation, Beta." The fleet scattered, 47 warships breaking from their aggressive approach pattern into a protective sphere. It was a textbook defensive response, one they had drilled countless times. But Vex Thor knew it would not be enough. The humans had already proven they could strike with precision and power beyond what their technology level should allow. Where did those weapons platforms come from? Colorex demanded, studying his tactical display. Our sensors showed nothing but primitive satellites. They were concealed somehow, the sensor officer reported. Now that they have fired, I can detect them. But sir, the readings make no sense. These platforms are using technology that should not exist on a pre-FTL world. Pixlan was scrolling through files frantically. Sir? There is a note here from the Mendar Trade Alliance. They encountered human vessels 5 cycles ago. The report says humans reverse engineer captured technology with remarkable speed. They do not simply copy designs. They improve them, make them more efficient. That is impossible, Vesitin said, but his voice lacked conviction. Technology progression follows established patterns. You cannot skip development stages. Humans apparently can, Pixlan replied. New contacts appeared on the tactical display. Ships emerging from behind Earth's moon. The sensor officer studied them and made a confused sound. Sir, I am detecting human vessels, but the designs are wrong. They should not be spaceworthy. Vexthor zoomed in on the display. The human ships looked like they had been assembled in a junkyard. Mismatched components. Asymmetrical designs. Some appeared to be built from salvaged alien technology welded to human industrial equipment. They should have fallen apart under their own structural stress. Instead, they accelerated toward the Kaldrith fleet with purpose and precision. How many? Vexthor asked. 16 capital ships, 32 smaller craft, more launching from orbital facilities. We still outnumber them, Vesitin said. Commander, this is your moment. Prove the superiority of Kaldrith military. Quiet! Vexthor snapped. Political officer or not, he was done taking orders from someone who had already nearly destroyed his fleet. Tactical. What are those human ships carrying? Colrex studied his screens. Difficult to determine, sir. Energy signatures are inconsistent. Some appear to be using plasma weapons. Others have kinetic accelerators. Several are showing power readings that fluctuate wildly. It is like they built each ship differently. Because they probably did, Pixlan said quietly. Humans apparently value adaptability over standardization. The human fleet closed the distance. Vexthor expected them to form up in a traditional battle line. Instead, they scattered into what looked like a random pattern. No organization. No clear formation. It was chaos. They do not know how to fight in space, Vesitin said hopefully. This is their first real engagement. We can use their inexperience against them. The political officer was wrong. Vexthor realized it the moment the first human ship attacked. It did not target the Kaldrith fleet's weapons or engines. It aimed for the Dreadnought's communications array with a precise missile strike. The array exploded, cutting Vexthor off from half his fleet. They are targeting command and control, Colrex said. Isolating our ships from each other. Other human vessels followed the same pattern. Strike the communications. Disable the sensors. Break the fleet's cohesion. It was not the tactic of inexperienced fighters. It was the strategy of someone who understood exactly how to cripple a superior force. All ships, local command protocols, Vexthor ordered through the backup systems. Captains have discretion to engage independently, but giving his ships independence played into the human strategy. Without coordinated fire, the Kaldrith vessels became isolated targets. The human ships moved between them like predators, separating prey from the herd. A human corvette engaged the Kaldrith cruiser, Eternal Flame. The cruiser had superior shields and weapons. It should have destroyed the smaller human ship easily, but the human captain did something no Kaldrith officer would consider. The corvette launched all its missiles at once, not at the cruiser, but at the space between them. The missiles detonated, creating a massive debris field. The cruiser's sensors were blinded. In the confusion, the human corvette circled around and hit the cruiser's engines from behind. Not to destroy them, but to disable them. The eternal flame drifted helplessly, unable to maneuver or retreat. "They are learning our tactics," Kolrex said with growing horror. "Watch. Every attack pattern we use, they counter within minutes." Vex's Thor saw it too. A Kaldrith destroyer tried a flanking maneuver. The first attempt nearly worked. The second time, the humans anticipated it and had ships waiting. By the third attempt, it was completely ineffective. "How are they adapting so fast?" Vesetin demanded. Pixlan found another file. "Sir, humans have something called pattern recognition. Their brains are optimized for identifying trends and predicting behavior. In their natural environment, they used this to track prey over long distances. Now they are using it against us. A new alarm blared. One of the human destroyers had broken through the defensive perimeter and was on a collision course with the dreadnought. Vex Thor watched in disbelief as the human ship accelerated directly toward his bridge. "Destroy it," he ordered. The dreadnought's point defense systems opened fire. The human destroyer's shields failed almost immediately. The hull took damage. Atmosphere vented into space. Any rational captain would have turned away. The human captain did not turn away. The destroyer kept coming. At the last moment, Vex Thor saw small craft launching from the doomed ship. Escape pods. The humans were evacuating their crew. Then the destroyer hit. Not quite on the bridge, but close. The impact sent shockwaves through the dreadnought's entire structure. Systems failed across 3 decks. The ship's artificial gravity fluctuated, sending crew members tumbling. "Damage report," Vex Thor shouted, pulling himself back into his command chair. "Hull breach on decks 7 through 9. Weapons System 2 is offline. Shields are at 40% capacity." The damage control officer's voice shook. "Sir, they used their own ship as a weapon. They sacrificed it deliberately. After saving their crew," Pixlan added. "They protected their people, then used the ship as a projectile." "That is insane." "That is effective," Kolrex corrected. "We have lost 1 destroyer completely. 4 ships are heavily damaged. The far horizon is requesting permission to withdraw. Life support is failing." Vex Thor made a quick decision. "Grant it. Any ship with critical damage may retreat to minimum safe distance." 5 ships immediately broke formation and fled toward the system's edge. Vex Thor did not blame them. He wanted to flee too. A new transmission came through. The same human voice from before, but this time visual included. A human female appeared on the screen. She wore a military uniform and had short dark hair. Her face showed no anger, no excitement, just calm professionalism. "Kaldrith Fleet Commander," she said in perfect Kaldrith. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of Earth Defense Command. You have now experienced a small demonstration of our defensive capabilities. You entered our space with hostile intent. You fired on our property. Under our rules of engagement, we are justified in destroying your entire fleet." She paused, letting that sink in. "However, Earth does not seek unnecessary bloodshed. You made a mistake. A serious mistake. But one based on incorrect intelligence. I am offering you 2 options. First option. Surrender your vessels immediately. Your crews will be treated according to established rules of war. You will be held temporarily, then return to your territory with a message for your empire. Second option. Continue this engagement. If you choose to fight, we will show you what we are truly capable of. Choose quickly, Commander. My patience has limits." The transmission ended. Vex Thor stared at the blank screen. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders. They had lost 8 ships. 8. In less than 30 minutes of engagement, against a supposedly primitive species. Vesetin stepped forward. "Commander, we cannot surrender. The Empire is not here." Vex Thor interrupted. "I am here. These ships are here. These crews are here. And we are about to die if I make another mistake. He looked at his tactical display. The human fleet had pulled back slightly, giving him space to decide. It was almost courteous. They could have pressed the attack, could have destroyed several more ships while he considered. Instead, they gave him time. What are our chances if we fight? He asked Colrex quietly. The tactical officer studied his screens for a long moment. Honestly, sir, we lose. Maybe we take some of them with us, but we lose. They are not fighting like any opponent I have trained against. They are unpredictable, creative, and they are clearly not showing us everything they have. What do you mean? Colrex pointed to the tactical display. See how their ships are positioned? They are only using half their fleet. The other half is holding back, watching. I think they are still learning from us, sir. This is practice for them. Vex Thor felt his blood run cold. The humans were treating this like a training exercise, testing their abilities against a real opponent. Which meant if he chose to fight, they would stop holding back. Sir, Pixlan said softly, there is one more note in the files. From a Quintel ambassador, who met humans at a diplomatic conference. He wrote that humans have a saying: we can be your best friends or your worst enemies. You choose. I think Admiral Chen just offered us that choice. Vex Thor looked at the faces of his crew. Young officers like Pixlan, who deserved a chance to grow old. Veterans like Colrex, who had families waiting at home. Even Vesetin, foolish as he was, did not deserve to die for his pride. He made his decision. The only decision that made sense. But before he could give the order to surrender, Vesetin pulled out a ceremonial blade. If you will not defend the Empire's honor, I will. The political officer lunged forward, slashing at the communications console. Sparks flew. The system went dead. Target their homeworld, Vesetin screamed. Target their cities. Make them pay for their insolence. Everything happened at once. Colrex tackled Vesetin. Security officers rushed forward. And on the view screen, Vex Thor saw Admiral Chen's expression change for the first time. She was no longer calm. She was angry. And somehow, that was more terrifying than anything else. Unfortunate, Admiral Chen said, her voice cold. All ships, weapons free. Show them what they have earned. The human fleet that had been holding back suddenly advanced. And behind them, rising from Earth's surface like angry insects, came hundreds more ships. Platforms hidden in asteroid belts powered up. Stations concealed in orbital debris revealed themselves. Vex's Thor realized with absolute certainty that the humans had been holding back this entire time. They had been testing his fleet with a fraction of their strength. Now they would show him their real power. And Vex Thor knew, with terrible clarity, that none of his ships would escape. The Cauldrith fleet was dying. Not quickly, but methodically. The humans were no longer testing or demonstrating. They were ending the battle with professional efficiency. Commander Vex Thor watched 3 more of his ships take critical damage in the span of 2 minutes. The destroyer Morning Light lost all power and went dark. The frigate Silent Wind suffered a reactor breach and had to be abandoned. The cruiser Endless Sky was boarded by human forces who cut through the hull like it was thin foil. Casualties? Vex Thor asked, though he dreaded the answer. 17 ships destroyed or disabled. 843 confirmed dead. Unknown number injured. The officer, delivering the report, looked sick. Sir, the far horizon just surrendered. They dropped shields and powered down weapons. Human ships are moving to secure them. Vex Thor expected the humans to destroy the defenseless ship. It was what any reasonable military force would do. Disabled enemies could become active again if left alone. But the human ships simply surrounded the far horizon and held position. No more weapons fire, no boarding action. Just containment. They are taking prisoners, Colrex said quietly. A massive impact shook the dreadnought. Vexthor grabbed his command chair to avoid falling. What was that? Boarding craft, sir. 3 of them. They attached to our hull near the engine room, the armory, and the secondary bridge. Pixlon pulled up internal sensors. Human forces are cutting through. Estimate they will breach in 90 seconds. Vexthor had heard stories about human boarding tactics. Brutal. Efficient. Focused on speed and overwhelming violence. He prepared himself for slaughter. At least he would die fighting, which was better than he deserved after leading his fleet into this disaster. All security teams to breach points, he ordered. Prepare to repel boarders. 10. 60 seconds later, the hull plating near the engine room glowed red, then white, then exploded inward. Human soldiers poured through the opening. They wore heavy armor and carried weapons that looked crude but effective. Caldrith security forces opened fire immediately. The humans moved with practiced coordination. They used the corridor walls for cover. Marcus. They suppressed the Caldrith defenders with concentrated fire while others advanced. Within 30 seconds, they had pushed the security team back 2 corridors. Vexthor listened to the reports with growing despair. The same pattern repeated at all 3 breach points. Human forces advancing, Caldrith forces retreating, not because his soldiers were cowards, but because the humans fought with a level of aggression that was almost incomprehensible. Then, something strange happened. The human forces secured the engine room and stopped advancing. They set up defensive positions and held. No push toward the bridge. No attempt to capture vital systems. They just secured their position and waited. Sir, they are hailing us, the communications officer said. Audio only. Put it through. A human voice came over the speakers. Male this time. Speaking accented but understandable Caldrith. Caldrith vessel. This is Lieutenant Marcus Webb, Earth Defense Forces. We have secured your engine room and disabled your jump drive. You cannot escape. We have also secured your armory and medical bay. You have injured crew members who need treatment. We are willing to provide medical assistance. Power down your weapons and surrender your vessel. Your crew will not be harmed. Vexthor looked at Colrex. Is he serious? I do not know, sir. But why would he lie? He has already won. Pixlon was monitoring the internal sensors. Sir, I am detecting something strange. The human forces in the medical bay are not just guarding it. They are helping our wounded. I can see life signs stabilizing. They are actually treating our injured. That made no sense. You did not waste medical resources on enemies during combat. Yet the sensor data did not lie. Human medics were providing aid to injured Caldrith soldiers. Another hail came through. Commander Vexthor, Admiral Chen's voice said. I know you can hear me. Your political officer's actions were unfortunate, but I understand you were attempting to surrender before he interfered. I am willing to accept that you are not personally responsible for continuing this engagement. Power down your weapons. Order your remaining ships to stand down. Let us end this. Vexthor felt the weight of command crushing down on him. 21 ships gone. Thousands of his people dead or injured, all because he had been too proud or too afraid of political consequences to retreat immediately when he learned this was Earth. Sir, Colrex said gently, they are giving us a way out. We should take it. Vexthor nodded slowly. He reached for the fleet-wide communications, then hesitated. What will they do to us? Then, only one way to find out, Pixlon said. Vexthor activated the channel. All Caldrith vessels. This is Commander Vexthor. Cease fire. Power down weapons. Prepare to be boarded by Earth forces. Any captain who wishes to continue fighting may do so at their own discretion. But I am ordering the fleet to surrender. Silence followed. Then, one by one, his remaining ships acknowledged the order. 26 vessels still operational, all of them battered and damaged. They lowered shields, powered down weapons, waited for whatever came next. Human ships moved in cautiously. Boarding craft approached each Kaldrith vessel, but the humans did not storm through like conquerors. They entered methodically. Weapons ready, but not firing. They secured bridges and engineering sections. They gathered Kaldrith crew members into designated areas, but they did not shoot anyone who cooperated. They did not execute prisoners. They followed procedures that seemed designed to minimize harm. On the dreadnought, the bridge doors opened. Human soldiers entered with weapons raised. Vex Thor stood with his arms spread, showing he was unarmed. Around him, his bridge crew did the same. A human woman entered behind the soldiers. She was tall by human standards, wearing an officer's uniform. Dark hair pulled back. Brown eyes that assessed the bridge quickly and efficiently. Admiral Sarah Chen, Vex Thor realized. She had come personally. Commander Vex Thor, she said, pronouncing his name carefully. I am Admiral Chen. We met briefly over communications. I remember, Vex Thor replied. You promised to show us what you were truly capable of. I did, and now you understand. She looked around the bridge. Is anyone injured here? No. We surrendered before your forces reached the command level. Good. Chen gestured to one of her soldiers, who brought forward a medical scanner. We will need to check anyway. Some injuries are not visible. Vex Thor watched in confusion as human medics scanned each member of his bridge crew. They identified 2 officers with internal injuries from earlier impacts. The medics treated them on the spot, using equipment that was portable but surprisingly sophisticated. I do not understand, Vex Thor said. Why are you helping us? We invaded your world. Chen looked at him with an expression he could not quite read. Please do. You made a terrible mistake today. You attacked Earth based on incomplete intelligence. You assumed we were weak because we appeared primitive. But the mistake itself is not unusual. Many species have made similar assumptions about others throughout history. What matters now is what happens next. She gestured to the view screen, which showed Earth hanging peacefully in the distance. My world has a long, bloody history. We fought among ourselves for thousands of years. We killed each other over resources, territory, ideas, religion. We were very good at violence. The best, perhaps. But eventually, we learned something important. What did you learn? Pixlan asked. That cycles of revenge accomplish nothing. If we kill all of you today, what does that solve? Your empire sends a bigger fleet to avenge you. We destroy that fleet. They send another. Eventually, both our civilizations are exhausted or destroyed. Everyone loses. Chen walked to the view screen and looked out at the stars. We learned that the way to end conflicts is not through total destruction of your enemies. It is through demonstrating strength, yes, but also offering dignity and a path forward. You attacked us. We stopped you. Now we want you to go home, tell your people what happened, and make sure it never happens again. Cole Rex spoke up. You are just going to let us go? Eventually. First, there are procedures. We need to document everything that happened here. We need to treat your wounded and repair your ships enough that they can travel safely. We need to establish communication protocols with your empire. All of that takes time. She turned back to Vex Thor. But yes, Commander, you will go home. Your crews will go home. You will carry a message to your empire about what happened here, and hopefully, you will ensure that no one else makes the same mistake. Vex Thor felt something he had not expected. Shame. These humans had every right to execute him for his invasion. Instead, they were treating him with respect, professional, clinical respect. But respect, nonetheless. Why? He asked. Chen smiled slightly. Because we understand something about power, Commander. True power is not just the ability to destroy your enemies. True power is having the ability to destroy them and choosing not to. We want the galaxy to know that Earth can defend itself. But we also want the galaxy to know That we prefer peace to war, cooperation to conquest. She gestured to her soldiers, who lowered their weapons. You are now prisoners of war under Earth's protocols. That means you have rights. Food, water, medical care, humane treatment. We will respect your dignity as sentient beings, even though you came here to conquer us. Do you understand? Vex Thor nodded slowly. I understand. And Admiral Chen? I am sorry. Not just for the invasion, but for not listening to the warnings. We knew about Earth. We just did not believe the reports. Now you do, Chen said simply. Now you will make others believe too. That is the message I want you to carry home. Over the next 3 weeks, Vex Thor watched the humans work. They treated Kaldrith wounded with the same care they gave their own injured. They repaired Kaldrith ships, not perfectly, but enough to make them jump capable. They provided food that was compatible with Kaldrith biology. They even allowed limited communication with home so families could know their soldiers were alive. Vex Thor spent time talking with Admiral Chen. She explained human history, their wars, their mistakes, and their slow progress toward peace among themselves. She showed him records of human conflicts, not hiding their violent past but explaining how they grew beyond it. We are not perfect, she told him one day. We still argue. We still disagree. Sometimes, we still fight each other. But we learn to fight with words and votes instead of weapons. Most of the time, anyway. What changed? Vex Thor asked. We realized we were all on the same small planet. We had to find a way to coexist or destroy ourselves. We chose coexistence. Now, we are trying to extend that philosophy to the galaxy. Pixlon, who was present for many of these conversations, asked the question that haunted them all. What happens when you meet species that do not want peace? Species that only respect violence? Chen's expression hardened. Then we show them we are very, very good at violence. But we make sure they understand that violence is our last choice, not our first. There is a difference between being peaceful and being harmless. Earth is peaceful. We are not harmless. The young officer absorbed this. We will tell the Empire. We will make sure everyone knows. That is all I ask, Chen said. 3 weeks after the battle, the Kaldrith fleet prepared to depart. 26 ships instead of 47. Crews reduced by casualties and wounded who needed extended medical care. But alive. Returning home, Vex Thor stood on his repaired bridge one final time before departure. Admiral Chen appeared on his view screen for a final conversation. Safe travels, Commander, she said. I hope we meet again under better circumstances. As do I, Admiral. I will deliver your message. I know you will. And Commander? You are not a bad officer. You made a mistake. Learn from it. Your people will need leaders who understand what happened here. The communication ended. The Kaldrith fleet activated their jump drives and folded space around them. Vex Thor watched Earth disappear from his view screen and wondered if he would ever truly understand the strange species that lived there. They could have destroyed his fleet, could have killed him and all his crew. Instead, they showed mercy, not weakness. Mercy. That, Vexus Thor realized, was the most frightening thing of all. The Kaldrith fleet emerged from jump space at the border of Imperial territory. Battered, diminished, but intact. Commander Vex Thor sat in his command chair and prepared for the most difficult part of his mission. Not the battle, not the surrender, but the explanation. The border station immediately hailed them. This is Imperial Station 7. Identify yourselves. This is Commander Vex Thor, returning from the GC-7834 operation. He replied. His voice sounded tired even to his own ears. A long pause followed. Commander, we show only 26 vessels. You departed with 47. What happened? That is a long story. I need to speak with Imperial Command immediately. Understood. You are cleared for approach. Medical ships are launching to assist. The fleet limped toward the station. Vex Thor watched the medical vessels approach and felt a strange mixture of relief and shame. Relief that his surviving crew would receive proper care. Shame that he had led so many to their deaths. Pixlan approached quietly. The young officer had changed during their time as prisoners. He seemed older now, more thoughtful. "Sir, what will you tell them?" "The truth," Vex Thor replied. "All of it. Even the parts that make us look foolish. They might punish you, remove you from command. They probably will. But that does not change what I must do." 2 days later, Vex Thor stood before the Imperial High Council. The chamber was vast and cold, filled with the most powerful individuals in Kaldrith civilization. Military leaders, political figures, economic ministers. All of them staring at the commander who had lost 21 ships. Commander Vex Thor. The High Chancellor began. "You will explain what occurred at GC 7834. Vexy Thor straightened his posture. "Honored Council, we attempted to invade Earth." Confused murmurs rippled through the chamber. Several council members checked their data pads, looking up the name. "Earth is not in our invasion database," one minister said. "No, honored minister. Earth is in our warning database. Under local designation, not catalog number. Our survey team failed to make the connection. I failed to verify before we entered the system." He proceeded to tell them everything. The confident approach, the moment of realization, the battle, the surrender, his time as a prisoner, the humans' treatment of captured Kaldrith forces. When he finished, silence filled the chamber. The council members looked at each other uncertainly. "You are telling us," the High Chancellor said slowly, "that a pre-FTL civilization defeated our battle group?" "Not pre-FTL, honored Chancellor. That was our mistake. Earth has faster-than-light capability. They have been in contact with multiple civilizations. They simply have not engaged in widespread exploration or expansion. They have been observing, learning, and preparing." A military advisor spoke up. "Your report mentions that Earth treated prisoners according to rules of war, that they provided medical care and returned your forces. Why would they do this?" Vex Thor chose his words carefully. "The humans explained their philosophy. They believe that cycles of revenge are counterproductive. They demonstrated their military capability, then offered us dignity and a path forward. They want the galaxy to know they can defend themselves, but they prefer peace to conquest. That sounds like weakness." The political minister said. "It is not weakness, honored minister," Pixlan interrupted, then quickly added, "Forgive my interruption. But I was there. I saw what humans are capable of. They were holding back during most of the battle, testing us. When they decided to end the engagement, they did so with overwhelming force. They could have destroyed us completely. Choosing not to was not weakness. It was strategy." Kolrex stepped forward. "If I may add to Officer Pixlan's statement, I reviewed all combat data from the engagement. The humans adapted to our tactics in real time. They displayed creativity and aggression beyond any opponent I have encountered in 20 cycles of military service. More importantly, they showed us only a fraction of their defensive capabilities. There were weapons, platforms, and vessels that never engaged. They keep reserves hidden." The High Chancellor leaned back in his seat. "What is your assessment, Commander? Is Earth a threat to the Empire?" Vex Thor considered this carefully. "Earth is a threat to anyone who threatens them, honored Chancellor. But they are not expansionist. They do not seek conquest. 6 other civilizations have reached the same conclusion. All recommend diplomatic contact only. 2. What do you recommend? We accept their terms. We pay reparations for the lives we took. We add Earth to our highest priority navigation warnings, properly cross-referenced this time, and we never, ever attempt military action against them again." "That sounds like surrender," a general said. "It is practical, Vex Thor replied. We started a fight we could not win. The humans gave us an opportunity to walk away with our lives and our dignity. I recommend we accept that gift and learn from our mistake. The council debated for hours. Vex's Thor and his officers waited outside the chamber, uncertain of their fate. Finally, they were called back in. Commander Vex Thor, the High Chancellor announced. This council finds that you acted with poor judgment in entering the Earth system without proper verification. However, we also recognize that the survey team's failure to cross-reference local designations contributed to this disaster. Furthermore, your conduct, after realizing your error, was appropriate. You minimized further casualties and secured the return of surviving forces. The Chancellor paused. You are hereby removed from Fleet Command, pending further review. However, you will be reassigned to the Xenological Study Bureau. Your new duty will be to ensure that this kind of mistake never happens again. You will create proper protocols for surveying potentially dangerous civilizations. It was not a glorious assignment, but it was fair. Vex Thor accepted it with a nod. Thank you, honored Chancellor. Officer Pixlan, the Chancellor continued. You demonstrated initiative and intelligence during this operation. You are promoted to full officer status and assigned to work with Commander Vex Thor. Together, you will make our empire safer. Pixlan looked stunned. I am honored, Chancellor. As for Earth, the Chancellor said, this council votes to accept their terms. We will pay the requested reparations. We will establish diplomatic contact through proper channels, and we will update all navigation databases with appropriate warnings. The political minister who had advocated for the invasion stood reluctantly. I will draft the official communication to Earth. Is there anything specific they requested? Yes, honored minister, Vex Thor said. Admiral Chen asked that we share what we learned with other species. She wants the galaxy to understand what happened here. That will damage our reputation, the minister protested. Our reputation is already damaged, the High Chancellor said. Better to be known as species who learned from their mistakes than species who hide their failures. Prepare the communication. Make it honest. The meeting concluded. Vex Thor and his officers were dismissed. As they walked through the halls of the Imperial complex, Pixlan spoke quietly. Do you think we did the right thing, sir? We made the best of a bad situation, Vex Thor replied. Now we try to prevent others from making the same mistake. Over the next 6 months, Vex Thor worked to create comprehensive protocols for first contact scenarios. He compiled all available information about Earth into a detailed report that was distributed to every military installation in the Empire. The report was honest about the defeat. It explained human capabilities, and it emphasized the most important lesson. The report's conclusion became famous throughout Kaldrith space. Humans are not to be feared because they are violent. Many species are violent. Humans are to be respected because they are capable of both extreme violence and extreme restraint, and they choose restraint when possible. This combination of capability and judgment makes them more dangerous than any purely aggressive species. They cannot be intimidated because they do not fear death. They cannot be provoked because they control their emotions. They cannot be predicted because they constantly adapt. Approach them with honesty, respect, and peaceful intentions, or do not approach them at all. The report spread beyond Kaldrith space. Other civilizations read it. Some dismissed it as exaggeration. Others took it seriously. A few requested copies of all available data about Earth. 6 months after the battle, Earth reached out to the Kaldrith Empire officially. They proposed a trade agreement. Small at first, just an exchange of cultural information and basic goods. The Empire accepted cautiously. The first human diplomatic vessel arrived at Imperial Station 7 on a cold morning. Vex Thor was there to meet them, at his own request. He watched the humans exit their ship, led by an ambassador named James Zhang. The ambassador approached with a smile. Commander Vex's Thor, Zhang said in perfect Kaldrith. Admiral Chen told me I might meet you here. She wanted me to give you this. He handed Vex Thor a small data crystal. What is it? Vex Thor asked. A personal message. From the Admiral. Private communication. Later, alone in his quarters, Vex Thor played the message. Admiral Chen appeared on his screen. Wearing casual clothes instead of her uniform. Commander, she began. I wanted to reach out personally because I respect what you did. You made a terrible mistake, but you owned it. You protected your crew when you could have let pride destroy them all. You learned from the experience and used it to help others. That takes courage. She paused. I have been in combat many times. I have made mistakes that cost lives. I understand the weight of command and the burden of failure. You carry that burden with honor. For what it is worth, I think the galaxy needs more leaders like you. People who can admit when they are wrong and work to do better. Earth looks forward to peaceful relations with the Kaldrith Empire. Perhaps someday, we will work together on something important. Until then, take care of yourself. And thank you for listening when it mattered most. The message ended. Vex Thor sat in silence, processing the Admiral's words. He had expected judgment or condescension. Instead, she offered respect and understanding. It was, he realized, very human. 1 year after the battle, Earth hosted its first Galactic Trade Conference. 53 civilizations attended, including the Kaldrith Empire. Vex Thor was part of the delegation, now recognized as an expert on human relations. The conference was held on Earth itself, in a city called Geneva. Vex Thor stepped off the transport and immediately felt the planet's heavy gravity. The atmosphere was thick and humid, but the humans had prepared environmental suits for species who needed them. The conference went well. Trade agreements were signed. Cultural exchanges were established. Humans proved to be shrewd negotiators but fair. They wanted partnerships, not domination. On the final night, there was a reception. Vex Thor found himself standing near a window, looking out at the human city. Lights stretched to the horizon, millions of humans going about their lives, unaware that their planet had nearly been invaded a year ago. Beautiful, is it not? A voice said beside him. Vex Thor turned to find Admiral Chen. She was in her dress uniform, holding a small cup of dark liquid. It is, he agreed. Your world is remarkable. Coffee? She offered, gesturing to her cup. I do not think my biology can process it safely. Probably wise. It is an acquired taste anyway. She looked out the window. I wanted to thank you properly, Commander. For coming here. For representing your empire. I know it could not have been easy. It was necessary. Vex Thor said. My empire needed to see that you meant what you said. That you truly wanted peace. We do. But we are also ready if peace fails. She smiled slightly. I think you understand that balance now. I do. May I ask you something, Admiral? Of course. Why did you come to the reception tonight? You have many important guests to attend to. Chen looked at him seriously. Because, a year ago, you and I stood on opposite sides of a battle. You could have let pride destroy your fleet. I could have let anger destroy your crews. We both chose differently. That matters. That is worth acknowledging. She raised her cup. To difficult choices. Vex Thor raised his own glass of water. To learning from mistakes. They stood together in comfortable silence, two warriors who understood each other. Around them, diplomats from dozens of worlds mingled and talked. The galaxy was learning about Earth. Some species were still wary, some were curious. But all of them had updated their databases. Next to Earth's coordinates in every navigation system in civilized space, there was now a simple warning. The exact wording varied by species, but the message was universal. In Kaldrith databases, it read, Earth, human homeworld. Diplomatic contact welcome. Military action strictly prohibited. Serious consequences for violations. We mean it. We really, really mean it. Below that, in smaller text, was a note added by Vex Thor himself. Approach with honesty and respect. They will respond in kind. Approach with hostility, and you will learn why 53 civilizations call them friends instead of enemies. Choose wisely. The warning had been accessed 400,000 times in the past year. So far, no one else had been foolish enough to test it. Vex Thor hoped it would stay that way. The galaxy did not need more wars. It needed more species willing to choose peace when they had the power to choose otherwise. Earth had taught him that lesson the hard way. Now he spent his days teaching it to others, hoping that someday the warning would not be necessary. That species would approach each other with curiosity instead of conquest. It would take time, maybe generations. But looking at Admiral Chen, at the peaceful city beyond the window, at the diplomats from dozens of worlds working together, Vex Thor allowed himself to hope. The galaxy was changing. Earth was part of that change. And perhaps, in some small way, so was he. That was enough. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.